Welcome. My name is Valerie Young. I serve as the Synod Leader and Stated Clerk for the Synod of the Sun. Before I turn this webinar over to our facilitators from Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, I would like to offer a word of gratitude for the pastors, commission pastors, and congregational leaders. We are so grateful for the ways in which so many of you have met the challenges of these times. In what has been called the lentiest Lent ever, you embraced technology and made it through Holy Week and Easter in stellar fashion. You did it. Thank you. Perhaps you're just now internalizing that the current wilderness isn't over, though. I pray that the material presented to you today provides you with the tools you need to build resilience for these days and the days to come. Be on the lookout for more webinars this month from the Synod, and please be in touch if there is any way we can be of assistance to you. Now, here is Kathleen Riley from Presbyterian Disaster Assistance.
Thank you, Valerie. We are grateful to be here and welcome to this webinar that was created by Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, especially for faith leaders in this COVID-19 season. We are so glad you're here and that you've taken the time to participate in this webinar on building resilience. I am Kathy Riley. I'm on the national staff for PDA in emotional and spiritual care. And with me today is Pat Ashley, who is a member of the National Response Team and is retired clergy. I want to echo what Valerie said. We are so grateful to you for your service, to all the congregations and individuals who support One Great Hour of Sharing and support Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. We are grateful for your support and for making our work possible. And of course, with One Great Hour of Sharing, making it possible for Presbyterian Hunger Program and the Self-Development of Peoples to do their work. You may have the handout that goes with this webinar. If you have it and printed it out, great, keep it handy. We're gonna use the first couple pages for you to write some things down in as we go. If you don't have the handout, don't worry, but we hope you have something to write with and some paper handy, because we'll be stopping periodically through the webinar to ask you to jot down some thoughts in response to some of the prompts that we're going to give. At the end of the webinar, we'll put up a slide that'll give you the link and the my email address so you can be sure to get that handout, because we really think that you'll be able to use the tools and resilience materials in it in the days and the weeks and the months to come. So our goals for this webinar are to talk about common signs of stress in body and mind, to offer ways to cope in the moment when you notice stress building up, and to build resilience into your lifestyle. We'll be giving you a chance to practice some new tools, as well as perhaps to remember some tools that you already have but haven't been using lately. We hope that at the end of our time together, you will feel rejuvenated with a renewed sense of hope and with some good resources to take with you. As I mentioned, we'll pause periodically for you to write down your responses to our questions and prompts, and that'll help you create your own individualized resilience plan. As we pause, if you finish writing before we go on, just be patient. We promise we will continue, and no pause is more than a minute. So we know you're busy and you probably have texts and emails coming in. If at all possible, we encourage you to put your devices on silent and settle in for the full benefit of the webinar. So as we've said, this webinar is called Building Resilience. A key way that we understand resilience is that it is the ability to bounce back from difficult times and to stay flexible and functional in the midst of stress. So today we want to focus on some key elements of resilience that are essential in reducing the impact of stress on our lives, stress that we're going through now and stress that comes up in ordinary times. So these are using tools for self-care, telling our stories, and positive relationships. In knowing these elements and using well-practiced tools, you can strengthen your ability to sustain your calm effectiveness in times of stress. In addition, we'll touch briefly on the importance of the building blocks of diet, sleep, and exercise for a healthy, resilient lifestyle, and we'll spend some time with our spiritual life. So I want to begin now by teaching a very simple tool for relaxation. It's just called Observe Your Breath. So I invite you to sit comfortably erect or stand if that's what you're doing. And I invite you to observe your breath without trying to control it or change it in any way. Just notice your breath going in and out. I'm going to give us a moment for a few breath cycles. Just notice your breath going in and out. So I hope you had a chance to notice what that felt like, perhaps the sound of your breathing. You might have found that your breath started slowing down a little bit without you even trying. That's fine. If it didn't change at all, that's fine too. The idea is this is a tool we can use just to interrupt our response to stress when we notice it happening and help begin the relaxation response that we all need. We're going to share several more of these tools today in our hour with you, and there are those and many more in the handout that you'll be able to download and print out at your leisure. We know that you are busy, and you are probably extra busy in this time as you're reinventing how you're serving others, innovating how to do virtual pastoral presence and other virtual ways of caring and staying connected with the folks that you serve and you worship with. Many of you are working, as I am, with technology that was not familiar before this time of COVID-19. One of the tools that we find that can be helpful in building our resilience is to take some time to remember, to think about, to reflect on what we find meaningful about our work. We feel a strong commitment to the work we do, and it reflects what we value in life. So I'm going to invite you now to take out your piece of paper, or if you have the handout, look at page 2, and take a minute to write down an answer to this question. What do I find meaningful about the work I do? So what do you find meaningful about the work you do? I'll give you a moment to reflect and write that down. Okay, I hope you had a chance to get started on that. You can always come back and add to it. So right below that, you can write these words. I do this work because. I do this work because, and then just finish that sentence simply with your own words. I do this work because. So now you have a response to I do this work because, and we're going to use that. Staying in touch with the value of our work on a daily basis or whenever we need it can help foster our resilience, especially in times like this when most people around us are stressed. Those we serve have needs we never imagined, and we're facing challenges that go well beyond our training and experience. So to help you stay aware of why you do your work, we have another tool. We have called it the hallway or doorknob affirmation from the times when we used to actually go places to do our work. It still works even now when we're working at home. And here's how we do it. So in these days of COVID-19 restrictions, before you pick up the phone for a work phone call, before you begin a worship service, if you're doing those virtually, before you sign into a Zoom meeting, or walking into whatever room you're using for your work, you can think to yourself, I do this work because, and then use the one-liner that you just created. This reconnection with our motivation for the work we do, for the ministry into which we were called, can remind us of our sense of purpose and meaning throughout regular days and when things are tough. I have used this tool over the years, and since I began working for PDA and emotional spiritual care, I use it daily. And for me, I do this work because I feel God has called me to it, and it uses my skills in ways that I feel are meaningful. And now Pat is going to lead us into a consideration of what happens when we're stressed and some things we can do about it. Pat, you're muted still. Pat, you are muted. There you go.
It said I couldn't unmute myself because you muted me, so that may be something to be aware of during the course of the hour. In order to use resilience tools and practices to reduce the impact of stress on us, we need to have a good sense of what stresses us and of how we tend to respond in mind and body. As part of our daily work, many of us are listening with compassion and empathy to other people's difficult experiences. Listening to one or two or even a few such stories is manageable. But when we hear many such stories day after day, we can absorb them, and our reactions may begin to reflect the stress of others. Add to that these days we may find ourselves in situations we've never had to deal with before. Please turn to page 3 in your handout or take your paper and write down a heading for stressors. Take a moment to jot down some of the things that stress you out. Are there particular persons or situations that especially challenge you? Is there something in this COVID-19 season that's getting to you? Write down the main experiences that tend to affect you. We'll take about a minute for this. As I imagine you know, there are often physical reactions we experience when we're responding to stress. One of mine is that I can feel tired, low energy. Think for a moment about what often happens within your body when you are experiencing stress. Physical responses can include increased blood pressure and heart rate. Our breathing may change. Some people hold their breath or breathe less frequently. Others go to rapid and shallow breathing. Muscles can tighten. Different people tighten in different places, stomach maybe, shoulders, neck. We can develop tunnel vision. It's important to be aware of where stress lives in your body so that you can notice it and then use breathing and other tools to break into that stress response and begin to relax. In addition to the physical effects of stress that we can be aware of, there are changes in our brain when stress takes a front seat in our lives. We may experience what's been called the fight or flight response, where our bodies pump out the hormones we need to survive in life-threatening situations. In those times, and in times when stress may not be imminent danger, but is significant, part of our brain becomes more active and part becomes less active. The higher functioning part of the brain can become less engaged and efficient. We may find it more difficult to focus, to think logically and make plans and decisions. The ability to set goals and recognize the steps necessary to achieve them can be more challenging when we're under stress. It may become more difficult to use our words, to use language to express ourselves. It turns out that human beings are not made to be able to stay in a chronic state of stress for an extended period of time and stay healthy. Unless stress is addressed and dealt with during this time of the coronavirus, something's got to give. So that's why we're talking about ways to re-engage our higher functioning brain and our relaxed body as we go about our work and the rest of our daily life. You've written down some things that are stressful in your life. Now I'd like you to return to your handout or piece of paper under the place where you wrote your stressors and jot down 2 or 3 ways you typically respond to stress. Are you most affected physically, or perhaps emotionally, or relationally, or behaviorally? One of mine is to become withdrawn. What are your most common stress reactions? Take some time to write those down. Now Kathy's going to help us experience another relaxation tool.
Thank you. So one of the things that I didn't mention in the beginning, and I'll say now, is we haven't built this webinar to have a time for questions and answers or chats, but I will make sure at the end that you have my email address. So if there's anything you want to ask about that wasn't clear, I'll be happy to respond via email. So in the beginning, we started with that very simple tool for relaxation, just observing our breath. Increasing the amount of oxygen that gets to our brain and regulating our breathing are very important steps for interrupting that stress response and beginning some relaxation. So in order to relax our bodies, whenever we're stressed or going into a difficult time, we can make use of a variety of relaxation tools. Some will help as you're starting your day or ending your day, and some can help just in shifting gears during the middle of a day. So we're going to teach 2 more quick and easy tools now. Remember, you don't need to worry about taking notes on the instructions for the tools, because once you have the handout, they'll all be in there. So the first tool I want to offer now is called the 4-7-8 breathing tool. I'll talk you through it first, and then we'll all have some time to practice it. So the way it works is you'll close your mouth, and with your tongue touching the top of your mouth, you'll breathe in for a count of 4. Breathe in through your nose. You'll hold it for a count of 7, and then exhale audibly through your mouth for a count of 8. That equals 1 breath cycle. The idea for the exercise is we do it and we complete 4 breath cycles, and then we just go back to breathing normally. The ratio is what's important. The timing will be your own once I've done it once with us. And the main thing is to exhale for longer than you inhaled, so you completely empty your breath. So I'll take this through us with this once, counting, and then I'll stop. I'll do it for 2 breath cycles silently, and then I'll get us back together. So let's do this together. Sitting or standing, whatever's more comfortable for you. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'm going to turn my sound off and invite you to do 2 breath cycles of 4-7-8 at your own pace. I hope you were able to go through 2 cycles of 4-7-8. And as I said, this and all the other tools we're teaching, you'll be able to get in the handout. We suggest that you do the 4-7-8 exercise at least twice a day whenever you feel yourself becoming a little stressed. It's also really helpful, and I can attest to this personally, in helping you fall asleep if mind is kind of racing, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and it's too early to get up. The 4-7-8 breathing technique can be very, very helpful. And now Pat's going to lead us in the other tool for the moment and into our next segment. Valerie, Pat's still muted.
This approach focuses on our muscles to help us relax. The idea is that you'll tighten your muscles in one area of your body as much as you can, then release them slowly, consciously letting go of the tension they hold. And remember to breathe. We'll begin at the top of the body and work downward. Please do this with me. Begin with your facial muscles. Tighten, relax, and breathe. Move to your neck. Tighten, Relax and breathe. Then shoulders and back, tighten. Relax and breathe. Go to your arms, tighten. Relax and breathe. Wrist, hands, and fingers. Maybe make a fist. Tighten. Relax and breathe. Notice how you are, having done even just this much. Of course, it's ideal if you can take the time to work through your whole body, perhaps even in smaller increments. The more time you can get it, the more benefit you will receive. Practice is essential for these tools to be useful in the midst of real life. We urge you to choose a couple of exercises to make your own. You might decide to practice at a particular time of day. Maybe you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you practice your relaxation exercise. Or perhaps you choose to do it when moving from your workspace in your home to your living space, or vice versa. Right before you go to bed is a great time to practice your relaxation tools. You could create a practice reminder for yourself in your phone. The purpose of this practice is to make the use of the tool so automatic and natural that you may find yourself using it in the midst of stress without even thinking about it. We often assume that stressful situations and events automatically lead to stress responses in our body and mind. But today we are offering you a different way to consider the work you do and the environment in which you do it, especially when stress levels are high for you and the people around you. The stressors do not have to lead to the effects they commonly have on us. We have options. When we let go of the assumption that stressors automatically lead to negative effects, that makes some room in us for something new. When we are aware of what stresses us and of how we tend to respond to stress, we can more quickly take steps to relax and to see our behavior not as something we're stuck with, but as the context in which we do our work. In many instances, we can choose how we respond. In between the stressful situations that we're facing these days and our response to those situations, there is a space. We can stand in that space between stressors and response. We can use our inner wisdom, our knowledge about our own stress responses, which we have identified earlier, and our resilience tools, which we have been practicing, to help us control our responses so that effects are not as negative. Now, Kathy's going to help us move into another whole arena for resilience, self-care.
As we mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, research tells us that self-care, storytelling, and relationships are essential elements for reducing the impact of stress and for building and maintaining resilience. Most of our focus today is on tools we can use in stressful moments, but there are other important activities that we can use as part of our lifestyle, things we enjoy, things we know how to do, but often neglect to do during stressful times. But doing these will help build our resilience. Self-care can start with the kind of breathing and muscle relaxations that we've been experiencing. And all the suggestions you have surely been hearing about in these days of COVID-19, and especially as faith leaders, things you can do for self-care, taking time off every day for rest, keeping up with your hobbies or starting some new ones if need be, making meals really meal times, not work times, not email, not watching the news. And speaking of the news, being sure to limit the time we spend following the news on the COVID-19 situation and even on social media. Having those limits, engaging in those good habits are clearly parts of self-care that are so important for us to engage in and to model for those we serve. I imagine you, like I, have heard since you were a child about the importance of diet, exercise, and a good night's sleep. But now we know this isn't just good advice that we've heard since we were kids. There is strong scientific evidence, and it's building every time I look, to show that diet, sleep, and exercise are crucial for healthy bodies, healthy brains, and good mental health. And if you already know about this research, we're well aware that knowing and doing can sometimes be two different things. So here are a few thoughts and some suggestions. Let's start with diet. In times of hard work and stress, you'll want to be sure to follow whatever dietary recommendations your healthcare professionals have set out for you if you have some. But if you're not already following a special diet for health concerns, we'd like to suggest that you take a look at the benefits of the Mediterranean approach to eating. You can look up Mediterranean diet and you'll find all sorts of information about the kind of foods to focus on, some to minimize, and the ways that it can benefit your physical and overall health. And on to sleep. It is just still true that getting between 6 and 8 hours a night for adults is linked to better mood, better overall feelings of well-being, and can reduce the impact of stress in our lives. And it's important to have a regular time every day of turning off work and of going to sleep. When we do that, we have a cycle, we have a predictable rhythm. It's easier for our bodies to say, okay, time to relax, time to turn off. We can increase the amount of time we spend in relaxation and in recovery mode for our brains and bodies if we do the best we can to stick to a regular schedule of rest and sleep. You may know that exercise stimulates the body's natural feel-good hormones that just can make problems seem more manageable. The bottom line is that exercising 20 to 30 minutes a day, 3 to 5 or more times a week is important for all of us, even when it comes in 5 or 10-minute spurts at a time. It doesn't have to be a long period of exercise or physically moving. Lots of ways that you may have already seen online to incorporate movement and exercise, even in the midst of COVID-19 restrictions, even in our own homes. And as you can imagine, there are plenty of apps to help you with that and to help all of us remember to move more. So I invite you to take your paper that's in front of you and write down 1 or 2 things that you can do to eat in a healthier way, to sleep more regularly, and to move more every day. We'll give you a little bit of time to respond to those thoughts. Okay. So I want to speak just for a moment about aspects of self-care that apply specifically perhaps to us as faith leaders in this time of the COVID-19 season. You probably already know, and maybe you're doing this already, that it's wise to find ways to, as clearly as we can, separate work and the rest of our life, especially when so many of us, if not all of us by now, are working from home. For instance, we can dress for work in the morning as a signal to ourselves and to those we're with, if we're with others during the day, that now I'm working. And then we change our clothes later when we're done working as a signal that these are different times of the day, different rhythms. If there's a space where we live to set apart only for work, that can help with the separation, remind us and others when we are working and when we're not. You might consider, if you haven't already, establishing office hours. And we communicate those office hours to others so that they know we're inviting them to contact us primarily during those times, unless it's truly urgent. Setting some limits, setting some boundaries is a form of self-care that we can exercise and we can model for others. And now Pat is going to share some additional important ways that we can care for ourselves.
Think about what you do to take care of yourself that really works. Excuse me. What are some simple things that bring you joy? What brings a smile to your face or just makes you feel good? Let some things come to mind. Whatever these things are, we urge you to make a commitment to do them as often as you can. We're talking about things you can access easily, like maybe funny cat videos. We're looking at pictures of family and friends or special places. Especially in this time of nonstop access to social and news media about COVID-19, we need to take a break for things that are uplifting. It's important not to start or end your day with news or work, but to start and end with something that gives you pleasure and lifts your spirits. One of mine is to go to YouTube and listen to Somewhere Over the Rainbow by the Chino Valley students who offered a virtual concert when their live concert was canceled. It's glorious. Please take out your handout or piece of paper and write down 2 or 3 simple things you can do anytime during the day or evening that will lift your spirits. Take a moment now. Being clear about our intention for resilience and having well-practiced tools available to us can make a big difference in how we deal with stressful situations. In addition to the exercises we've done so far, we can use what are called grounding tools to help break our stress response cycle and be more relaxed in body and mind. You can use these tools when you are drifting off while sitting in a virtual meeting, or spacing out from anxiety with thoughts going around like a hamster wheel. Anytime we find it difficult to concentrate. And you can usually do grounding exercises without anyone else even noticing. They can help restore your ability to pay attention and perhaps bring some inner quieting. Here are 2 grounding tools that involve touching something with your hands or feet. Please try this one with me. Choose an object that you can rub that's within your reach right now. We suggest something that's immediately available because you can do it anytime you notice you're not quite fully present. Might be paper clips or coins in your pocket, your clothing, your chair. Let your fingers quietly explore your object. Notice the size, the shape, the texture, hardness or softness. Notice within you how you may have become more focused or calmer or more present. You can do something similar with your feet, maybe tap them on the floor or feel the soles of your feet against your shoes, against the ground beneath you, or maybe run your foot along the leg of your chair. These exercises that we've been doing can be called self-care in the moment. The moment we notice our own personal stress responses popping up, we have the opportunity to step into that space we've been talking about and plan our response. If we've been practicing our tools, we can use one in the moment to interrupt our stress reaction and make other choices. Yet another area for our resilience is relationship. Kathy's going to help us take a look.
Thank you. So one of the things that we know and lots of folks have talked about is that for good mental health and resilience, it's really helpful to have one or more persons in our lives who will really listen when we need to talk. If we do these things, it can help us continue to do good work in our lives as faith leaders, work that is fulfilling, can reduce the impact of stress on our daily functioning, and will help us to remain calm and compassionate throughout the day. Now, we're pretty sure that you realize the value of telling their story for the people you're working with or serving, or those you listen to in your personal life. Might it be possible that telling your story about what you're going through, particularly in this time of the COVID-19 situation, could it be possible that telling your story would be equally beneficial for you? Take a moment, don't need to write anything down, just think about what the benefits are of telling your story. So here are some of the positive things that telling your story can offer. You may have thought of some of them. We make meaning of our experiences. We can become more aware of how the experiences affected us and how we can release the feelings and memories that we might need to let go of. When we tell our stories and are truly heard, we form deeper and more meaningful connections with the people who are listening to us. Telling our story lessens the impact of stressful or difficult experiences on us. And of course, it reminds us that we're not alone. And this storytelling also applies to positive stories, things we want to celebrate and can share with someone else. Remembering and telling the important stories of our life are powerful tools. These can be learned and practiced, and they can help us function better in times of stress and really throughout our lives, especially when we're not the ones who are used to being listened to. So I'd like you to think for a moment about who you have in your life that you talk with on a regular basis about things that are important to you, including but not only the stresses that you may be experiencing now. Just think for a moment about who you talk to. I hope you've thought of a few folks. What I'd like to suggest is that it's a good idea for us all, for you, to find what we call an intentional listening partner. This would probably be someone other than your spouse, your partner, or a close relative, someone that you live with. The intentional listening partner is important for lots of reasons. You may just need someone to talk to about your reactions to the difficult stories that you are hearing from those you serve and care for. You may need to talk about how things are going for you as you are adjusting to this constantly changing situation of COVID-19, or as you feel the weight of the vulnerable among those you serve. You may realize that there are some things you specifically want to do, to work on, to build up your own resilience. And it would be helpful for you to buddy up with someone to share your progress and your challenges. And you just may need someone to talk to when stress has gotten the better of you, as it does for all of us from time to time. So an intentional listening partner is someone who will not judge us, someone who will keep everything we say confidential, someone who could be available within a half day or a day of when we ask for a conversation, someone who will not give us advice unless we ask for it. And an intentional listening partner is someone who won't talk about their own stuff when we've asked them to give us time to share what's on our mind. So you can let your intentional listening partner know what you'd like them to do or what kind of help you'd like. I had someone ask me just a couple weeks ago if I would be their intentional listening partner, and she shared with me what she was looking for. And when you found someone who can be an intentional listening partner, you can offer to do the same for them if you like. I'm thinking of one of my listening partners who has a great sense of humor. He's known me forever and he's really honest. So I can get on the phone with him and say, man, I just want to tell you about this. I really messed up. Things did not go well. They went south in a heartbeat. And he'll usually laugh and say, yeah, that doesn't sound like a shining moment for you. What do you want to talk about? And we go from there. So I invite you now to turn to page 5 in your handout if you've got it, or just on your piece of paper, and write down the names of 1 or 2 people who you can think of who might be an intentional listening partner for you. Take some time to write down a name or 2 that come to mind. Okay, I hope you thought of someone, and if not, you can always come back and give it some thought. One of the things that we know in disaster response, and there's no doubt COVID-19 is a disaster, one of the things we know is that when we're sharing stories of difficult, stressful experiences, it's really helpful and important to do that in a relaxed body. So before you have that conversation with a friend or a spouse about something that's been difficult, or before you have a conversation with your intentional listening partner, use one of the relaxation tools that we've offered in this program or that you'll find in the handout, so that you can go into that conversation having done some relaxation exercises and do it in a relaxed or a more relaxed frame of mind. In addition to finding intentional listening partners, we just need to remember to make time and space for the important, positive, life-giving relationships in our lives. You may want to take time later to review those relationships that are most important to you and make sure you have a plan for how you'll be sure to stay in touch with those folks during this time. And I know you're having gatherings on Zoom within your synod, probably with your presbyteries. If you haven't already done this, you might want to think about a small group, a pastor support group, a just talk to each other kind of group for a conference call or online meetings, just to talk shop, just to share ideas. The opportunity to share and hear creative ideas concerning ministry in these days and being part of congregations that look so different can be really helpful. We can lift our challenges up with each other. We can help sustain our resilience together. And for some of us, just knowing that a conversation, a Zoom meeting is coming up can help foster our awareness that we are not in this alone. And now Pat is going to share some thoughts and some tools related to spirituality.
We know that for many people, another resource for being resilient is an active spiritual life. This includes, of course, practices from our faith tradition and being sure to prioritize our own devotional and prayer life, as well as times for activities that nurture our inner life, such as time with nature or meditation. When we pray about our own experience of the coronavirus season and pray our intercession, both for those who suffer and for those who are doing such vital work for our healing, we know we join with countless others who are reaching out to God at this time. But we also know that during stressful times, those who serve may feel too busy or preoccupied to engage in our usual spiritual practices. Yet this area of our lives is so important to keep up with, whatever that may look like for you. We're going to focus on a couple spiritual practices today. The first is cultivating an active practice of gratitude. A growing body of research is revealing that gratitude enhances all of life, physical and psychological health, increased happiness and life satisfaction. Grateful people are less likely to suffer burnout. Some studies have reported that keeping a gratitude journal can increase overall happiness. I invite you to allow what you are grateful for to come into your mind and to write on page 5 in the handout or on your paper at least 3 things that you are grateful for. It can be anything, maybe people, pets, organizations, maybe special kinds of food or places that are meaningful to you. Take some time to list what you are grateful for. We talked about starting and ending your day with something that will lift your spirits. Recalling what you're grateful for can be a great way to do this. Another spiritual practice that might serve us well these days is called centering. Please do this with me. Sit comfortably erect, feet on the floor, hands on your lap, eyes closed or almost closed. Allow a word or phrase that soothes you come to mind. It might be a word like hope or joy, or a phrase such as peace like a river, or the honey of loving kindness. Name to yourself now your own word or phrase. Now repeat it over and over in your mind until you come to a place of stillness and are not focused on anything outward. If people or things come to mind, release them lightly and allow them to move on. We'll take a minute to center in this way. Gently draw your awareness back to the room in which you are sitting and your screen. Kathy's going to lead us in a couple more tools for resilience.
So we are just near the very end of our time, and Pat, I'm gonna take us to the end and close us out, and I'll put up a screen at the very end with the link and my email for questions. So as we come to the end of our time together, I want to just mention that there are some tools that we can use at the end of our workday. Those are, of course, in the handout. I just want to share one very quick one with you, partly because it's fun and partly because I do it. It's something that you can just do standing or sitting, and it's really easy. Imagine you're a dog who's just come in from the rain, and we're going to shake off the day's stresses and literally just shake from head to toe, shake it all off, whoosh out your breath, and just kind of let things go. You can see some other end of the day tools for relaxation and resilience when you get the handout. So we packed a lot in this hour. I encourage you to take a look at what you've written, go through the handout, find some exercises that you're sure you're going to want to try if there's some new ones, or go back to some old ones that you used to use. Make some notes for yourself. Again, create your own resilience plan. I want to thank you on behalf of Presbyterian Disaster Assistance for inviting us into your lives for this hour, and we wish you all the blessings in the work that you're doing. We are so grateful and glad to have been with you for this short time. Thank you.